Imagine an artist whose career has already reached the top of the world. Everyone admires him. The global media highlights his every move, and his every move can create a new trend on the internet in a matter of seconds. But behind all the glitter, it turns out there's another side that not many people know, the side that even makes a classmate of Bang Si Hyuk, the founder of HYBE and the brain behind BTS's success, admit that Jungkook is the hardest member to manage. This has caused a stir in the Korean entertainment industry. How so? Jungkook, who is known for being disciplined, perfectionist, and versatile, is actually called the most unruly. But if we go deeper, it's not about problems or conflicts. It's about the complexity of an artist living amid global expectations, where every little choice can be big news. Jungkook is not just an ordinary idol, he is a symbol of extreme professionalism, emotional honesty, and a relentless drive to constantly evolve. And sometimes, those things actually make it the biggest challenge for anyone trying to direct his career, including Bang Si Hyuk himself. But interestingly, while the staff and producers called Jungkook difficult to manage, the BTS members actually had a different opinion. They said, "We love him for who he is." An interesting contrast, isn't it? One side describes him as a stubborn and uncontrollable figure. The other side sees him as a sincere, honest, and dedicated little brother. The question is, what is really going on behind the scenes? Is Jungkook indeed too free to be controlled by the industry? Or is it just that the K-pop industry system is not ready to face an artist as authentic as him? Let's dig deeper into the secret behind Bang Si Hyuk's statement and find out why Jungkook can be such a complex figure, unruly, but at the same time the most beloved. When it comes to Jungkook, one word that often comes up among HYBE's production staff is details. He's not the kind of artist who comes in, records, and goes home. Jungkook can repeat one vocal part up to 50 times just because he feels he hasn't found the right feel. In the fast-paced and structured world of K-pop, this kind of behavior can be a big challenge for management. Imagine the schedule that had been arranged neatly, suddenly delayed because Jungkook wanted to explore one tone deeper. But here is his specialty. He is not a stubborn directionless, but a real artist who wants perfect results, not just good. In an old interview, Bang Si Hyuk once admitted that Jungkook often turned down some creative direction. For example, when the production team wanted to use a popular vocal style, Jungkook would say, "I don't want to imitate anyone else. I want this voice to feel like mine." That simple sentence sounds trivial, but for an industry that often encourages idols to follow trends, it's quite a statement. And it doesn't happen once or twice. In the process of making Golden, Jungkook reportedly rejected several songs that he considered too mainstream and asked for additional time to work on versions that were more in line with his vision. The result? The album was a huge success, and international music critics called it the most sonically honest work of a K-pop artist. But for management, the process is not easy. A HYBE producer once even said anonymously, "Working with Jungkook was amazing, but also exhausting. He knows exactly what he wants, and he won't stop until he gets it." From the outside, it may look like an ordinary perfectionist. But if you look deeper, this is the source of the subtle conflict between Jungkook and the system around him. K-pop is accustomed to speed and efficiency, while Jungkook believes more in deep and personal processes. That's why Bang Si Hyuk called her the hardest to manage. Not because of her bad attitude, but because her artistic standards exceeded the normal limits of any idol. And interestingly, it is precisely because of this trait that BTS can have a different global quality. If there wasn't a figure like Jungkook who challenged the idol factory rules, perhaps BTS wouldn't have the artistic reputation it does now. But the question is, to what extent can Jungkook maintain this attitude without clashing with the industrial system that raised him? One of the main reasons Jungkook is considered unruly is because he can't just be told to. He has to know the reasons behind every decision. For example, when management is planning a certain promotion, Jungkook often asks, "Why is it like this? Is this really important to my music?" A simple sentence, but in an entertainment world full of routine, such questions can disrupt the rhythm of the system. Many idols follow directions without much debate, but Jungkook is not one of them. In fact, in some of HYBE's internal reports, it is mentioned that Jungkook is the artist who most often asks for revision of photo concepts, choreography ideas, to MV shooting. But on the other hand, all the staff who have worked with him also admit the end result is always better than the initial version. Therefore, even though it was difficult at first, they eventually learned one thing. If Jungkook refuses something, he is usually right. An example of this happened during a Calvin Klein campaign photo shoot. The production team has already prepared a classic concept with soft lighting. But Jungkook called for drastic changes, sharper lighting, more urban tones, and a more raw expression. At first the team refused, fearing it was too risky for a global brand. But after the photos were released, the style became a new trend in the global fashion industry and was even copied by other campaigns. From this, it can be seen that Jungkook's control over his image is not merely ego, but a deep understanding of what suits him and his public. However, from the management side, this independence can be a double-edged sword. When an artist knows very well the direction he wants to go, the control of the agency becomes limited. And for an industry as big as HYBE, that means losing some control of the system. But isn't that what makes Jungkook different from other idols? He is not a product, but a person with a clear view of his art and integrity. Interestingly, other BTS members are proud of it. RM once said, "Jungkook always has a reason. He's stubborn sometimes, but he knows why he is." That's why, even though Bang Si Hyuk called it the most difficult, for the members, Jungkook was the most sincere and consistent. If Jungkook's management is considered a challenge for BTS members, he is the center of the group's energy. Jin once said in an interview, "We love Jungkook for who he is. He always works hard, sometimes too hard, but we know that because he really cares." In many BTS documentaries, it can be seen how Jungkook is often the last person to leave the studio, recheck recordings, or rehearse choreography alone after rehearsals are over. To outsiders, it may seem extreme, but to other members, it is a reflection of dedication that keeps them motivated. Suga even once said in a joking but meaningful tone, "If Jungkook starts training at 2 a.m., we know that tomorrow we will have to work twice as hard." There was a kind of aura around him, a spirit that made everyone want to balance the standards he set. But it's not just hard work that makes members love him. Jungkook also has a warm, even innocent, personal side. He is known to be very attentive, often cooking for the staff, or secretly writing small messages to his hyungs when they are tired. It's little things like this that make Jungkook not only the youngest, but also the emotional glue between them. So, when the public heard Bang Si Hyuk call it difficult, the members actually laughed. For them, Jungkook isn't difficult, he's honest. He can't pretend to agree if he doesn't feel like it, but he also never acts without reason. That's where their love is rooted, understanding each other in imperfection. On the one hand, Jungkook challenged the industrial system. On the other hand, It gives BTS an authentic power that makes them irreplaceable. And maybe that's the real reason why, despite being unruly, everyone around her, even those who were exhausted working with her, ended up loving her anyway. Because in the end, in a world full of falsehoods and commercial strategies, Jungkook stands as a reminder that honesty and dedication can still win everything. There is one thing that is often overlooked when people talk about Jungkook, which is how hard it is to be him. On the surface, he looks like the perfect figure. Handsome, talented, successful at a young age, and loved by millions of people around the world. But behind it all, Jungkook is actually living under tremendous pressure. He not only faced expectations from fans, but also from the industry that demanded him to stay at the top. Sources close to HYBE once said that Jungkook has an extreme habit of preparing himself before performing. He can practice vocals until the early hours of the morning, double-check his posture in front of the mirror, and watch recordings of previous concerts only to look for small flaws that others are not aware of. This kind of perfectionism does produce high quality, but it also sucks in huge amounts of mental energy. Some of the staff admit that they sometimes worry that Jungkook is being too hard on himself. In the documentary Break the Silence, Jungkook said, "I'm afraid of making mistakes because one mistake can cover up all the hard work I've done." The sentence sounds simple, but it reflects the tremendous burden he had to bear. This is what makes Jungkook not only a difficult artist to manage logistically, but also emotionally. He has personal standards that cannot be negotiated, even by himself. Bang Si Hyuk, as a producer and mentor who knows him since adolescence, seems to realize this more than anyone. His statement that Jungkook is the most unruly isn't just about time management or artistic direction. It's about a character that the industrial system can't tame. For Bang Si Hyuk, Jungkook is an artist who lives by the principle, it is better to fight for artistic truth than to surrender for comfort. But on the other hand, it also means that he is often faced with great pressure from various parties. There were times when Jungkook's decisions put projects on hold, or his ideas were too ambitious to implement. But the end result always proves that his instincts were right. When he released Standing Next to You, many critics called the song the most international work of any K-pop artist, and it was not the result of HYBE's direction, but rather a personal decision by Jungkook, who wanted to highlight a global identity without losing his uniqueness. This is the dilemma that great artists often face. The more authentic they are, the harder they are to control. And for Jungkook, perfection is not just a goal, but a calling in life. He could not help but pursue her, despite knowing that the path was full of pressure and criticism. Even when Korean media criticized his appearance at certain events, calling it too different or too bold, Jungkook was not shaken. He did not answer with words, but with the next, more powerful work. This is an unbreakable form of perfectionism. It's not about being the best in the eyes of others, but about making sure each piece reflects itself fully. And perhaps therein lies the mystery, because while the world sees Jungkook as an idol, he sees himself as an artist. On several occasions, Bang Si Hyuk is known to not easily praise his artists excessively. But when talking about Jungkook, the tone changes. There's a kind of awe mixed with frustration. In one old interview, he said, "Jungkook is weird in a positive sense. He knows all the little things about the creative process, but he is also very stubborn. It's very difficult to make it follow the direction we've designed, but the end result is always amazing." The statement illustrates the unique relationship between these two figures, mentor and disciple, but also two powerful thinkers who challenge each other. Bang Si Hyuk may see his young self in Jungkook, someone who can't stand compromises, someone who's always looking for meaning behind every creative decision. However, as a CEO who must also maintain the stability of the company, Jungkook's attitude is sometimes a stumbling block. HYBE is a huge machine, with hundreds of projects running simultaneously, and every artist's decision has an impact on the vast system. In such systems, idealism is often seen as a distraction, but Jungkook was never afraid to interrupt. He knows the consequences and still chooses his path. That's what makes Bang Si Hyuk at once amazed and overwhelmed. In the Korean entertainment world, rarely does an artist have as much control over the direction of his career as Jungkook. He doesn't just sing the song given to him, he also determines the concept, tone, and even the visual color scheme, all of which made him one of the most influential artists under the HYBE label. But behind that, there's also a big question. Will Jungkook continue to survive under the same system? Rumors have long circulated that some in the industry expect Jungkook to build his own label one day, not because of the conflict, but because he was too independent to just be part of the machine. Bang Si Hyuk himself once said, "If one day Jungkook wants to make his own label, I won't be surprised. He's got the ability and the intuition for it." The sentence is like a prophecy waiting for its time, especially seeing how Jungkook is now more often taking his own decisions related to international projects, from global brand collaborations to musical directions that are increasingly free from traditional K-pop patterns. So, is it true that Jungkook will one day leave the system that raised him? Or is it precisely HYBE who will change to suit him? Herein lies a mystery that many fans and industry observers continue to speculate about. Because one thing is certain, whatever Jungkook does, the world will notice. And Bang Si Hyuk knew very well, no matter how hard this artist was arranged, losing him would be the biggest loss in HYBE's history.